Well, good morning, everyone. And how are you? Once again, welcome to another live. We appreciate you guys coming on when you can. Always fun to say hello to a few friends. And let's see here. Okay, numero uno. Who's coming up? On Ibrahim, I should have known. Andrea, I should have known. Nice to have you guys on. And Madeleine, right at the top. Nice to have you on. Janice, Brampton, Lori, and Ryan from Sarasota, Florida. Thanks for coming on, guys. Hi, Joss from Sturgeon Falls. Donna, Park Hill. Rita, good morning to you. Fran, how are you? Orangeville. All our dear friends to this program. And Nick, from our staff, Linda from St. Jude, Quebec, Cheryl, West Virginia, and there's Jeanette. I thought you were retired, Jeanette, and Jeanette, and Wendy, Markham. There's Doc McEwen, Kathy, Nellie, and Cecilia from Shediac, New Brunswick, Dave, Muskoka. Jeanette, how are you? Barbara from Thetford, and Georgie, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Sherry, oh, I want to sing so badly. Arlene, good morning. Nativity, thank you. Nativity watched the seminar last night. Jude, Maureen, Donna, and two Donnas right in a row. Kathy, Windsor, and Shelley from Sherwood Park, Alberta. Darlene, good morning from Saskatchewan. Lorraine, Oshawa. IT, Unionville. Sandy, Chilliwack, BC. Denise, Oakville. And Natalia. And Sue, how are you? And Keith, how are you, Keith? Mara, Amber, New Jersey. Marlene, how are you from Newfoundland? Andrea, have a nice day too. Rosalinda, and Bonnie from Little Britain. And Wendy from London, good morning to you. Cindy, Saskatchewan. Danette, how are you? And is that Bonnie? Yeah, I think so. Jude, or Judy, sorry, Judy. John, how are you? Jean, couple of more guys and we'll get going. David from Jensen Beach, Florida. How are you, David? Linda. And two Lindas in a row. We love those Lindas. Patricia, good morning. Ashley, how are you? Anne, how are you from Kingston? Thank you for watching last night. Tina, Rose, and we love you. Bev, Saskatchewan. Joyce, good morning to you. Janet, I hate to not say hello to everyone, but hi, Maria. Okay, we got to get going. Otherwise, we'll never, ever. And Patricia's from Florida saying hello to everyone. Guys, we love you. Sorry for those who missed the webinar last night. I understand. Look, I don't know. Some of you said, I was just reading some comments earlier that you couldn't get on or you didn't get the link or, well, first of all, don't ask me because you're looking at a dinosaur, okay? I'm so thankful that I was able to get on. And we spent the time with Dr. Martin Jr. I hope you, for the folks that came on, I hope you enjoyed that. Listen, we're going to do it again, okay? We got such good feedback. We'll do that again. And people seem to love the format of the Q&A, okay? Now, you can imagine, we didn't get to all the questions, but apparently, those questions that we didn't get to will be downloaded to me, and I'll be able to go through them and answer. Because, guys, really, what this program is all about is information. And generally, it comes from your questions. Okay? So, how many of you had questions last night on cholesterol, cortisol, weight loss, leaky gut, all the things we talk about all the time? And the questions were fantastic. They really were. And that's why we have question and answer every week. But at the end of the day, guys, like I say all the time, really, this show is all about answering your questions. So you got any questions for Friday, send them in, okay, at info@martinclinic.com. Info@martinclinic.com. That'll get to me, and we'll bring those questions up on Friday, okay? And there was a new study out on leaky gut and leaky skin that just came out. And the real connection between the microbiome and the health of your microbiome and your skin. Okay? So whenever, guys, this was just a rule of thumb, okay, in my practice. Whenever I saw dermatitis, acne, eczema, psoriasis, anything on the skin, my mind went directly to the gut. Okay? That's just the way I operated. I talked about leaky gut for almost 40-something years. Okay? And whenever I saw anything autoimmune, leaky gut. The research today on leaky gut and leaky skin is overwhelming. Leaky gut and leaky brain. These kids with ADD and ADHD. The link between your microbiome and your brain activity through the connection through the vagus nerve. I mean, we didn't even learn any of this in school. We learned about the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, but we didn't know anything really about the microbiome. We didn't know there was a community, although Hippocrates said it 2,000 years ago that the big connection between the gut and your health. But we didn't understand how that microbiome works so much, and bacteria and trillions of them. Okay? And I've been harping on this for a long time. You gotta fix your gut, guys. And I was probably one of the first, I don't say I was the only one, but I'm going to tell you I was one of the first guys. I got a lot of pushback. You got to understand, I had a radio show and I wrote books 30-something years ago on chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And I was telling people back then that they had trouble with leaky gut. Way back then. And my thesis that I did on chronic fatigue syndrome, when I published a book, Chronic Fatigue Syndrome and the Curse of the Modern Woman, the biggest thing that I attributed to CFS and fibromyalgia, which is autoimmune, was antibiotics. And you know our little expression here on our program, the doctor is in. Antibiotics, the greatest discovery in medicine, in the history of medicine. I'm convinced of that. Is there anything that has saved more lives than antibiotics in medicine? Probably not. The problem is it's a double-edged sword. On the other side, the flip side of antibiotics is they wipe out your friendly bacteria. And last night we touched upon this because we talked about oil of oregano. We got a lot of questions on oil of oregano. Can I take it every day? Why is Dr. Martin so high on oil of oregano? Well, you don't really get high on it, but it is so good for you. And the reason, and Tony Jr. said, Doc Jr. said, it's nature's antiseptic. Well, exactly. And why it is so good for you, besides being an antioxidant, antifungal, antiviral, antiparasitical, you can take it every day. It's not like an antibiotic that you're taking that for an infection and it wipes out everything. 5 days, they've proven that. It can wipe out your complete microbiome in 5 days. An antibiotic. And way back when, I was talking about the double-edged sword of antibiotics, where years later it comes back to bite you. You take antibiotics, how many women? Urinary tract infections, sinus infections, any infection. We had a case last night that they were talking about tonsillitis. And I was telling the story. I don't think Tony Jr. ever heard that story. Or maybe he did, but he laughed. He laughed when I was telling them about, I was in grade school, grade 6 or grade 7. And I'm telling you, everybody, the teacher asked a question. How many of you here got your tonsils? I was the only guy with my tonsils. I was mad at my dad. How come I didn't get my tonsils out? He said, 'cause you need them and you'll thank me later. My dad had always short conversations. They weren't long. Like, shut up, stupid, and you need your tonsils. My dad was light years ahead of his time. You need your tonsils. Why are they taking tonsils out at the first sign of infection? And kids in my class said, well, I got a Dixie cup. I went to the hospital and I got a Dixie cup. Do they still make those Dixie cups? Ice cream? I was mad at my dad. How come I didn't get a Dixie cup? But my dad wouldn't tolerate it, getting my tonsils out. You don't need your tonsils out. They're your gatekeepers. They're supposed to be there. You see, when I was in school even, they talked about tonsils as being a part of evolution. And you didn't need them anymore. We evolved and tonsils really were useless. And now we find out, you pretty near have to have gangrene of your tonsils nowadays before they take them out. You know what? You know when they tell you science is settled? Well, science wasn't settled on tonsils. Because everybody and their dog were getting their tonsils out, and now, doctors know better, and they go, nah, you need your tonsils. Most of them. Well, Tony Jr. was saying last night that they're starting to take tonsils out again. Leave them alone. You're better off. You're better off with your tonsils, my friend. You need them. God put them in your body to protect your upper respiratory system. And your trachea, your lungs, they're the gatekeepers. It was like the appendix. How many people got their appendix removed? And now because that was just part of evolution. You don't need an appendix. And now they're finding, oh yeah, you really do. Appendix is a really important organ. And, it's because don't play with Mother Nature. Don't play with what God gave you. Okay? Every organ you have in your body is important to you. But anyway, back to antibiotics. Leaky gut, the number one cause of leaky gut is the use of antibiotics because they disrupt the microbiome. They wipe out the good guys. And they start what we call a dysbiosis. It's an imbalance. You've got a very, maybe I'll use the word fragile, ecosystem there. Okay? And it's invisible. You can't see it, but it is so important for your health. As a matter of fact, at the Martin Clinic, we talked about 3 seeds of disease. One of them is insulin. You guys know that. We talk about it every day. Insulin resistance. And again, go back a long ways, and we were talking about it way before most people were talking about it. Okay? And the importance of that is that fragile ecosystem that you have. And when you take an antibiotic, you wipe out the good guys with the bad guys. I know you, like I said, I'm not against antibiotics. Anybody that says I'm against them, that's not true. I'm against the overuse of them. And what I'm against is doctors who don't understand dysbiosis. And they don't understand, and they should understand, because there's so much research, is when you take an antibiotic, you have to replace the bacteria that was lost and destroyed. You got to replace it. Otherwise, you set up a dysbiosis, and then the Trojan horse comes in your body. And you know me, I've been talking about fungus, yeast, candida. When you see something on your skin, almost invariably, because doctors are fascinated with bacteria. They're fascinated by bacteria. And that's why they love antibacterial soaps. They love antibiotics. They love that because all in their mind, they think of bacteria. Bad. Bacteria. Bad. Wash your hands 1,000,000 times a day. Use chemicals to clean your hands. And look, I'm not against washing your hands, guys. Use soap. You don't want to get rid of all the bacteria. Because the bacteria is not the bad guy. It's the soil. It's your terrain. It's your internal health. The things that you can't see. Okay? Let me get biblical for a second. Okay? I'm going to get biblical for a second. You get to Ephesians chapter 6, and it talks about there's an invisible war going on. You can't see it. Good and evil. Okay? You can't see it. You only see it by faith. But it's the same thing inside your body, guys. There's a war going on. And as long as you got enough good bacteria, it's called you win. And that's why we talked about the 3rd seed of disease, and that is leaky gut. And there, still today, there are those, leaky gut is a theory. My friend, in 2025, if you don't know, like any physician, any healthcare practitioner that doesn't understand leaky gut, you know why? They're not reading. They're not reading. There was a new study. Hold on here. Oh, yeah. The gut microbiome in inflammatory skin conditions. A new study. Hot off the presses. Dermatitis, acne, urticaria. All governed by leaky gut. The microbiome. The dysbiosis that occurs. The disruption of that fragile balance, the ecosystem inside your body. And I'll tell you something, guys. Antibiotics is the worst thing for leaky gut. Okay? It saves your life, but it's the worst thing for leaky gut. And you need to fix that. And the other thing is, we've gone, okay? Go back 100 years. Okay, not when I was born. I'm not quite that old. Okay? This is just historical facts, okay, in nutrition. When I got my PhD in nutrition, I did, a big part of it was the history of food. Okay? The history of it. I'm a big history buff. I love history. I love world history. But I love history of food in a sense that, okay, what's happened? Why do we have so much dysbiosis? Well, yeah, the greatest invention in medicine, antibiotics. Okay? And it's double-edged sword. The second one is the amount of sugar that we eat. Okay? Go back 100 years, and they were lucky to eat about 5 pounds of sugar a year. Sugar was expensive. And then in the 1950s, when I was a little boy, the average North American was consuming way too much sugar, 25 pounds of it. Well, you've seen a 25-pound bag, right? There's a lot of sugar in a 25-pound bag over a year. My 4 children were born, all of them were born in the 70s, okay? Including Tony Jr., smart like his mother. Now listen, by then, here's the history. North Americans were consuming 50 pounds of sugar. It had doubled. Okay? I always tell my grandchildren, yeah, Grandpa used to have cookies and ice cream too, you know. It wasn't just invented recently. But the amount of sugar doubled in a generation. Now, okay, so, and then you have my grandchildren, okay, and I got great-grandchildren. But my grandchildren, okay, so it went from 50 pounds, my children, I'm not saying I didn't allow that in my house, not that much sugar, right? But my grandchildren's generation, almost 200 pounds. You see, your body would never make for that. Your body wasn't made for that much sugar. Believe you me. And people, they don't read labels, because if they do, they read calories. You know, that was drummed in to medical school and dietitians and whatever. Calories. Moderation. I got taught moderation in school. Okay? I was taught moderation. The good thing is I had a pre-education. I lived with my father, who was a very wise man, who was a diabetic. when there was very little diabetes, but my dad was one of them. You know, we talked about this last night, about genetics. Genetics load the gun. Your diet pulls the trigger. Okay? I got a lot. See this face? Okay? You see this? I look like my dad. It's shocking. Okay? Especially as I got older. Okay? Because people used to tell me when I was a kid, no wonder they called you Tony Jr. You look like your father. Well, I never saw it until I got older. And then I go, yikes. Okay? But my dad was wise, because when he got diagnosed in 1968 on diabetes as a diabetic, I didn't even know what that was, really, other than my grandfather had it. So genetics are there. I got genetics for diabetes coming out my ears. And, but information is power, isn't it? Because I watched my dad. The next day, he came home, gathered the family, and said, look, I'm a diabetic. I was worried about my dad. He hadn't been feeling good. And my dad. And then he announced to the family he was a diabetic. And, you know, the family, I think we're all scratching our heads like, you know, lots of kids, and we didn't understand, and we were worried about my dad. The next morning, my dad was up jogging in 1960. Nobody jogged in 1968, but my dad did. I said, Dad, what the heck are you doing? He said, I'm getting into shape. I'm a diabetic. And then, Dad, you're not eating sugar? Well, it's sugar. I got sugar diabetes, son. Sugar diabetes. That means I can't have sugar. Okay. And I watched my dad live on steak 6 nights a week, just about. I'm not kidding you. There's nobody in the world that ate more steak than my father. My mother would make us a meal and make my dad a steak. That's a true story, guys. Why do you think I love Sun, Steak, and Steel? But guys, back to the microbiome. Sugar feeds the bad guys. It will create a dysbiosis in your gut. And if you don't have enough good friendly bacteria, and you got an invasion of the third army, and yeast proliferates in your gut and sneaks into your bloodstream, you're going to see the results of that away from the gut. You know, last night I talked about the downstream effects. I actually taught a course on this. Okay, I got to see if I can get this thing. I recorded a course for the College of Natural Medicine. Okay. And it was the downstream effects of insulin, the downstream effects of consuming sugar from your brain to your toes. And I mean it. Okay? But there's a downstream effect of yeast, fungus, candida getting into your bloodstream, away from your gut. Leaky gut, leaky skin. The proof, the studies are coming out. Leaky gut, leaky skin. Leaky gut, leaky lungs. Leaky gut, leaky sinuses. Leaky gut, leaky joints. Leaky gut, leaky brain. The connection between the gut and the brain. Depression. Autism, ADD, ADHD, bipolar. A lot of it, you have to come back to the gut and understand the gut and understand what happens in there. It's invisible. You can't see it, but it's there nonetheless. And that's why I'm big on it. Why do you think we talked about again last night the importance of probiotics? And, we had a little bit of a paradigm shift. This is probably Tony Jr. and I, we used to have powwows all the time. You know what a powwow is? Okay? A little mini conference. We used to do it all the time. We were always comparing notes. Like, I had a lot of experience. My son is very smart. He's a biologist and very sharp-minded. And, I remember him talking about inflammation. I'd go back 25 years ago. More than that. And he said, Dad, that's a big factor. But we talked about probiotics, okay? About 15, 20 years ago, we made a paradigm shift because we used to tell people, our patients, that at least twice a year on my radio show, well, you want to do probiotics, okay? And at least twice a year. And then we had a powwow. We had an ecumenical council between my son and I. And one day we just sat there and we talked about the importance of the microbiome. Go back that long ago. And we said, you know what? I think we got to start recommending to everyone, including ourselves, take probiotics on a daily basis. And then we doubled down on that, tripled down on that, quadrupled down on that. And we've been consistent ever since. We always loved probiotics, but then we said, you know what? We live in a world with plastic. Doc Jr. brought it out last night, talked about a credit card and a half. A credit card and a half worth of plastic, microplastics, your body is absorbed on average a week. Right into your body. A credit card and a half of microplastics. And you can't get away from it. You need probiotics for that because they chelate that. They help to get rid of it. And keep your liver empty too, by the way. You want to do a detox, you need your liver to do a detox. Your liver is your detox organ, even more than your kidneys are. And they get rid of garbage. But it has to be empty. It can't be full of fat. It can't be all gummed up. People are walking around, they don't have no idea they got gummed up liver. Anyway, I'm talking about leaky gut, now I'm at the liver. It shows you my train of thought. Okay, guys. We love you guys. Love you, love you, love you. Okay, you guys are great. Thanks for coming on last night. I feel sorry for the people that weren't able to because they didn't get the link. I don't know what happened, guys. I really don't. We had a huge crowd on there last night, and you know what? I was watching that, like, people just stayed on. We were on there till we did an hour and a half. 7:38. We did more than an hour and a half. But we'll do it again, I promise. Okay, we'll do it again because the response is overwhelming. Okay, we appreciate that. And guys, we're not shy. We're very opinionated. Okay, we want to answer your questions, so don't be shy. Okay, thank you very much. Send the questions into info@martinclinic.com. We'll try to get to the questions that weren't answered last night. I was promised the download of them, whatever that is. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.